All right, hi everybody. I am here backstage for To Live and Dine in LA, where I'm going to be talking about food justice and the edible garden and how communities can be helped through gardening when they're grieving. So that's my thing, that's what I'm going to do. Hopefully it'll go well. Thanks.
On the plate. And what if we didn't just think about the community garden with the foodie brain, right? Focusing on fresh food in a food desert, which is the cornerstone of the food justice movement. I'm here to invite you to imagine that growing food can add up to something even greater. That it can be this agent for healing the psyche of grief in communities disproportionately affected by loss.
Yes.
And that the community garden can be this agent for social and emotional health in our city's poorest communities. And that's another kind of justice we can be calling for. So, I stand before you right now as someone who happens to spend a lot of time thinking about the intersection of food and loss. I created the Kitchen Widow website and series as a way to look at the culinary applications for how we as individuals and as a community, how do we handle grief? It is not something I ever imagined myself doing, but I know loss. And loss, it disrupts, it challenges, it asks more of us than we know we're capable of. So here I am, a real life kitchen widow. My husband was an Italian-born chef, and it was our edible home garden that saw me through his cancer, his death, and my grief. So I'm your native informant, here to report that we can use the garden not only as this incredible tool for food stability, but that it can also be this canvas upon which we can process life, loss, even renewal. So I have a fact. Research indicates that 50% of inner city youth will experience the sudden loss of a family member before they're 21 years old. Okay, let's hear that. 50% of kids. That's a lot of grieving kids and families. So the same places that we see food instability are often the same communities where we see disproportionate amounts of loss. I mean, grief from gun violence, economic disenfranchisement. And I feel personally that no one community should be saddled with more loss than another community and then have no way to channel that loss. So grief work becomes essential, especially for the youngest members, and yet resources are scarce. But here's the good news. Gardening, right, is one of the tenets of grief work. Yeah, we tend to think about the garden for its obvious health benefits, right? Lowering blood pressure, fewer cases of diabetes and heart disease, but what if, imagine that we also thought about the emotional benefits of kids putting their hands in the earth. An edible garden becomes this way, right? That a child or his or her family, that they can process the story of their loss at the same time that they are planting the seeds of renewal and they're taking care of their bodies. I say, what if every child, grieving mother, father, grandparent, aunt, uncle, cousin, had access to a community garden? I am suggesting that we point the vectors of food justice to include the social and the emotional health of children putting their hands in dirt as a personal response to all that loss. And what if we use existing public institutions to do this? Let's just for a moment imagine edible gardens on the grounds of safe public places such as schools or hospitals. Okay, two places that are regular points of contact in a community. There's a hospital in Wisconsin that's doing exactly this. It's offering small gardening plots, right, adjacent to its facilities for members in the community who are having food instability or have been financially impacted by a medical crisis. The hospital will underwrite the cost of the plot for anyone who can't pay. In Detroit, there is a mother who lost her 4-year-old daughter to a carjacking. This woman is gardening on a city plot that is underwritten by a local chef. Her grief garden is literally putting life back into the soil of a community that has been blighted by economic loss and personal loss. She is transforming her grief into an act of love and service that is enriching her community. So I say, let's replicate that here in LA. We have the need, right? And so to quote Chef Dan Barber, he says that the highest order of humanness produces the best flavor, right? So grieving communities, getting dirt under their nails, putting their emotions into the soil in a way that nurtures their body and their soul, that, in my book, is the highest order of humanness. So everybody here, let's imagine, right? Let's get creative about how we can feed communities from seed to soul. Thank you.